day, everyone. Welcome to today's live coding session. And today this is the second live coding session of the stage, and we'll be looking at setting up Kubeflow. So, as a disclaimer, before we start, let me just probably start sharing my screen. I've tried a lot of different processes to try and see how it will be possible to place this on our local system. And while it is not impossible, the requirements that is needed is making it a little bit is placing a bit of constraint, let me put it that way, for us to um use all of this. Because back in the days, um although the requirement have always been so, the requirement to run Kubernetes and stuff has always been a large one. But in previous times it used to be easier to get it working on a host that does not meet the requirements per se. But with the new method and all of the updates that have been made, it has become quite a challenge to get it running locally. So Kubeflow itself has decided to make it such that it is the best and easiest way to make all of this, to make Kubeflow available on Kubernetes, is if you are running Kubernetes on a cloud platform. And if you are not running a cloud platform, the other tools that try to provide it locally, they require a lot of computing resources, especially for Kubeflow. You can running Kubernetes itself is a challenge, but most of systems are able to handle it. But immediately you want to deal with things like Kubeflow, it becomes a challenge because it places a lot of burden on your system. So what we'll be doing today is we'll be following this set of instructions on MicroK8. So last week, what we did was we went through the installation of MicroK8, and that was mostly we showcased it for WSL, and we also went through the documentation for Windows. So what will be happening today is that we'll be installing it on Windows. Okay, and then we'll try and get our Kubeflow up and running. So I tried this numerous times. I've wasted a lot of resources, I mean, in terms of data, because I've had to delete a lot of virtual machines and stuff. But then I just want us to go through the process, because based on what I've seen, even okay, let me just probably show you guys my task manager for you guys to get a feel of what I'm trying to say. Because currently my system, I'm using I have memory. I have around 16 gigabyte of memory on my system, and the recommended memory that you should have available is 32 gig RAM. So okay, even if you're not going to have 32 gig RAM, I think in another place I saw it that okay, you should have at least 16 gig of free RAM. And the only way you can have 16 gig of free RAM is if on your own system you have at least more than 16 gigabyte of RAM installed. So the fact that even my memory, you can see that my memory, I have just one available gig left. So this is placing a lot of constraint, because some of the resources that I'm running on my system already is already taking a lot of memory allocation. So now wanting to run things like Kubeflow that even require that much resources is causing some issues. But what we'll do is we'll go through all of the processes that is required to get this up and running. That's for today. So when we are done with all of the processes, I'm sure we'll not be able to access a Kubeflow dashboard, because in the process of doing it, I'll just show you. What I just want to do is to let you guys know that it's possible. So in case you have a system that meets the minimum requirements, you can then begin to go through all of these processes. You can just all of these are locally available. I think before we end the session today, I might just send the links, so you can see that my tab is with a lot of, because previously there's this GitHub repo that I saw also, because previously deploying on Windows was not really this difficult, because there was still a bit of support. But you can see, based on this text that I've highlighted here, since version 1.3 of Kubeflow, the OS based instruction, that's Windows based instructions, has disappeared. So the last time, if you come here, this is for version. Okay, this is the latest version. So the last time where Kubeflow had anything about getting Kubeflow working on a Windows system, the last time they did that was when they were on version 1.2. And the current version of Kubeflow, just to give you context, I think currently we're on version 3. Okay, so if we check the current version of Kubeflow, uh let me see the versions. Okay, yes. So the current version that most of these Kubeflow version 1.6, 1.7, 1.8. So the last time there was something about Windows installation was on version 1.2. And if you look between version 1.2 to now version 1.3, that's like 5 level changes of difference, which is quite a lot. So there are a lot of things that are currently on Kubernetes that are not supported on Windows. So you either need to get a virtual machine that runs Linux on your Windows system, or you try and use tools like microkit, which is what you are trying to do. And then even the microkit tool that we're trying to use is also trying that is also ensuring that the microkit is also using uh Linux. Because if we go, I think I wanted to show this also in a previous version of microkit. They had this particular version where to use Kubernetes, all you just had to do was to use the enable. But now if you try and look for that page on microkit documentation, they have deleted it. So the reason why they deleted that page is because they have also followed the flow with they have followed the flow with Kubeflow and the likes, and I've tried to ensure that the only way you can, like the only supported way that you can use Kubeflow on Kubernetes now is to use it with a Linux operating system. So just because of the way the installation works on Windows, I've seen a way, like I found a way that we can try to get it working. But before you can try to get it working, you need at least, if you are going to be running it with 16 GB of RAM, you have to have enough resources available. Because you can see that I have a lot of processes running on my system that I cannot start stopping or deleting them because they are very integral to what I do separately. So therefore, the available space I have is just around 600 MB or something. So if you want to run this, you need to ensure that, okay, your system is powerful enough to run this. That's why even these guys, they understand that these high-end systems might not be easily available. So that's why they have tried to standardize it being on the cloud, because to get it on the cloud, you just have to pay for what you use whenever you want to run your Kubernetes, and that will be all. So, and you also need to ensure that your disk, you have space available. On my disk currently, I have a lot of, my capacity is 400 and is like a 512 SSD, but currently I have just about 30 something gigabytes of space left. And this was after I deleted a lot of stuff. So I have just 34 gigabytes, and because I have a lot of different stuff that's on my system. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, because you are working with a system that you use regularly, you have a lot of running processes on your system that will not enable you to be able to run all of these processes unless your system is on the high end side, or you have very very few resources. So what will happen is I'll first delete the version of, because there's something called multipass. So I have to first, I hope you guys can see my screen, like as I'm changing and everything, you can all see my screen. Any confirmation from anyone that they can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, thank you. So, and again, if you have any questions at any point in time, you can just stop me. And just like I usually reiterate, is not, the internship is not going to be the final step. It is just like, is we providing a general introduction to all of these industry standard tools that you have to process, and you have to go through a lot of rigorous process on your own to try and ensure that you can have all of these tools for. I think they are higher level. I think I've seen some kind of internships based on data engineering only, data engineering, Mlops and stuff, that they try to give for, the big boys that have a lot of resources available. They provide their own version of Kubernetes via a cloud console. So they will have like a shell. For example, they can give people like 1 hour of practice of Kubernetes and stuff like that. So there are a lot of different resources out there that you can still utilize But most of all of those kind of resources probably won't start from the ground level like we are doing. So like I state, so you just have to ensure that the knowledge and um the tips and knowledge that you'll be getting from this internship is enough to prepare you to learn more, because it's still not to scare anyone, but there's still like a long way to go through all of these different kind of stuff. So these are the two links that I'm following. This is the official link by the um by Michael K8. So I've pasted that on the chat so you guys can access it. So this is the official link by Michael K8 for you to install Michael K8 and how you can get Kubeflow enabled on Michael K8. Before, it used to be very easy, just do Michael K8 enable Kubeflow and you were done. But due to all of the changes that have happened, blah 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 and stuff, so the recent change, even as at last year, I saw a YouTube video that tried to do something relating as at last year, and the YouTube video used Minikube. Minikube was what we the Kubernetes engine that we used in our last stage. So the Minikube that we used to introduce Kubernetes, they tried to enable Jupyter Notebook on the Minikube. That method has also been scrapped. And all of this method, because of the updates that have been happening to Kubernetes, before you can get something like that to work, you have to ensure that you are downloading all of those specific versions. And it's very hard because they even archive it. I think I can show you guys. There's this particular one exactly. So there's this particular. So I was following some steps here, and then I saw this particular step here. So, like for example, there's one about using Minikube. I think is other installation exactly. So, try exactly just like I stated. The last version was version 1.2. So when I went into version 1.2 to see, okay, what are the ways that we have to install Minikube, there was this particular one that said, okay, you can use Minikube. And since we have Minikube installed on our system, I felt that okay, this will be okay. So after installing Minikube, we then follow these particular steps to try and use this. So these were the documentation that they gave in, and I was trying to follow this. But the issue is that the first thing you will do here, if you go to blah 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 after installing Minikube, so they gave us this particular GitHub page that for you to get your Kubeflow running, you have to download this. But once you go to this GitHub page where you have to download this, you can see this repository was archived August 17, 2023. That was August last year. So this was one way that we even tried to try and ensure that we get Kubeflow running. But as at August, this repository has been archived. So there's nothing that we want to use here that will not run into an error because the organization itself has archived this. So all of those workarounds that we used to provide back in the days, a lot of them have been discontinued just to try and just to make sure that people only use Kubernetes. So the best way, I mean the easiest way, apart from using WSL, I also tried using my WSL, but because of, as I stated, because of my own hardware capacity. So one of the best ways I can also use is you can use things like VMware. So if you have applications like VMware, I think we all know VMware. So VMware is a virtual machine application. So you can download VMware and then install Ubuntu on your VMware. That's basically how to. That's basically the only way that can work on Windows. You have to use a virtual machine that has Linux enabled.
Sorry, please, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay. You mentioned WSL now. Why can't we use WSL?
The issue with WSL is running with a lot of resources with my own local PC. So the reason why I was showing my task manager for a while is for you to see like the resources available on my PC and to see that my PC is categorized as one of the, if not high end per se, is categorized as one of the okay PCs. I mean in terms of resources and all. So this is a 10th generation Core i7, and this is I have 16 gigabyte memory of space. Sorry, 16 gigabytes memory, that's RAM, and I have 512 SSD. But because of all of the processes on my system already, so you can see that for out of my 16 gigabyte of RAM, 14 gig is the available because you can't use all of your RAM available basically. So out of 16 gig, you have just around 14 gig available for you. And my only available space here is just 1.5 gig. And for every tutorial or any recommendation that you have for a PC that you want to use to run Kubernetes, Kubeflow, and the likes, you need to ensure that you have at least 16 gigabytes memory free and 50 gigabyte disk space free. So because of the fact that WSL is integrated on your Windows PC already, so it is sharing the resources that your Windows is also using. So because of this, I don't even have up to 1/4. I don't even have up to 4 gigabytes RAM space free to try and run all of these processes on my system. So if I use WSL, WSL will just keep, this is my WSL interface here, and you can see that my WSL is just, it just keeps crashing every time I've tried to run it. This is it. You can see this is the sudo micro k start and blah blah blah. So before you can use WSL successfully, you need to ensure that you have above these particular limits. In some places, I mean, for the official documentation, you see that the recommendations they have is 32 gigabyte RAM space free. So before you can use WSL on your system, before you can use it confidently to try and run this, you need to ensure that you meet these minimum requirements. So I don't know, does that make sense? Does that like answer your question to why I'm not saying you can't use it, but before you can use WSL, you have to ensure that the minimum requirements out there, you meet it with your local system.
Oh, okay. I understand. Thank you.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if
Hello,
even with
sir.
a virtual machine, even using a virtual machine also, you also
I
have
don't
to
know.
ensure that your virtual machine, because there's no, as long, yes, I can hear you.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
So you are talking about the
Based
virtual
on this high
machine.
configuration demand, is there an alternative, maybe in the cloud or in AWS? Is it possible for us who are free here?
No, yeah, I will answer that now. I think Rahman was also trying to say something.
Yes, yeah, you are talking about virtual machine, VMware. I have VirtualBox installed on my system. So I just want to know, should I just uninstall that and install VMware?
Oh, virtual box can work also. I mean, virtual box can work, but the major requirement is that you have this the minimum requirements on your PC free. That's the major requirement. I mean, whatever virtual machine, be it WSL as a virtual machine, VirtualBox, VMware, all of them, they act as a virtual machine where you can use another operating system, Linux, most of the time on your Windows PC. So the major requirement with all of this is that you need to have this minimum requirements. So we'll start going through all of these processes now. You try and see what I'm trying to tell you. So because when you start running through all of these processes, when Kubeflow start downloading all of the files that it needs, it takes a lot of space, and it takes, to keep all of the processes that are required running, you need like a lot of memory, and most times this is not available on low or mid-range PCs. So your PC needs to, even I was even shocked that even with my 16 gig PC, I was still running into issues. So mostly for someone to run it effectively without having any issues at all, you need to probably have like 32 gigabytes RAM on your PC, and you should be able to dedicate 16 gig out of that 16 gigabyte of RAM out of your 32 gig to run your Kubeflow only. So 16 gig only should go for your Kubeflow. So your other processes in your system should use 16 gig, and then the other 16 gig should go to whatever virtual machine you are trying to use to run Kubeflow. And then you should also ensure that you also have around 500 gigabytes of space free. And then with this, you'll be able to run your Kubeflow effectively without issues. So no matter what virtual machine, whatever you try to use, even if it's WSL, you just need to try and ensure that you meet the minimum requirements that are specified for you to run Kubeflow on Kubernetes. Okay, so I hope that is okay, Rahman.
Uh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Olaiwaju, to answer your question, yes, if for to use it on the cloud, yes, there are a lot of different options available, and to buy if you want to buy a PC for Kubeflow, no problem. But it did not used to be this stressful, because previously, as at last year, there were ways that we used to like. I think I've shown you some of these methods that we used to use back then, that we could try and circumvent all of these issues. But then most of these methods that we used to use, the organization itself has stopped them. So when the organization itself has stopped them, so most of your downloads and flows and stuff won't go effectively unless you are unless for the only person that can access this is someone that had this previous installation back then. And if you are using this old installation, you will not have access to the new tools that are being deployed. So that's why I was saying that the recommended way now to use Kubeflow is just to run it on the cloud. So the recommended method is you have provisions on the cloud, be it Azure, GCP, AWS, whatever cloud provider you want to use. There are cloud providers that they give you Kubernetes on the cloud, and then most of the basic versions of Kubernetes on the cloud are compatible to run Kubeflow with Kubernetes on the cloud. So, and if you go to Kubeflow official page, just I think I showed this to the last time. If you go to the official page on Kubeflow, okay, this is version 1.2. This is version 1.2. Okay, I think this is the official page. So you can see that on the official page, what they have listed is a lot of different supported method to get Kubeflow on different cloud providers. I mentioned this the last time also. So if you are someone that is using EKS, all you just have to click is use this website, go to a new tab, and then you already have the manifests that you are going to use to get Kubeflow working on AWS. So as long as once you are using a standard cloud provider, you are sure that whatever tool you are using is going to be like the standard. If you are using Microsoft Azure, AKS, for example, with AKS, all you just have to do is to come here and then machine learning toolkit for Azure, blah blah blah. So this is how they want you to install it. So if you just click on the documentation here, they
Yes,
tell
sir.
you
Can I
of
ask a question, sir?
yes, you can ask a
Yes.
question.
Up to now, the issue I was having on installing Kubernetes on Docker is still yet resolved. And I've tried so I want to ask, is there a way I can also bypass my system and run such on the AWS platform?
Yes, as on AWS,
I have a
Azure,
running account
wherever.
on AWS. I did
Yes, if
like
you have a running
maybe one
account, then
year
what you
ago.
should just
I
try,
know the limit I have.
yes, what you should just try to do is you just try and use the EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. So EKS service on AWS. So this is their Kubernetes service. So with the Kubernetes service, you don't have an issue. They also have this stuff here called EKSCTL, if I remember correctly, exactly. EKSCTL. So this is the command line tool. Let me just copy this for you so you can use this if you are going to try and go through this method. So this is the official command line tool for, sorry, where is this exactly? So this is the official command line tool for using Kubernetes to deploy a Kubernetes cluster using Amazon AWS. So you don't need to stress yourself. Once you just have that tool, you just need to go through once you download the CLI tool itself, you just need to run a few commands, blah blah blah. So once you have downloaded this, all you just need to do is to do like EKSTL up and stuff. You just exactly so dry run. Think after you want to call the dry run. So this is how you create an EKSTL cluster. So this is how you just create. Once you create this, you have it sorts out all of the back-end issue of trying to provision the number of nodes, the number of RAM you have available, and all those kind of stuff, at least for their default setting. And this default setting will be able to run Kubeflow or whatever it is that you need. Yeah, no, it is not free. It's only for those that have AWS subscription. So AWS, if there's no one here that have used AWS previously, AWS has a 1 year free trial plan for users. So once you sign on AWS, they give I think 1,000 credits is for free for the first
Now, please,
year.
will this one work on the free tier, sir? Is the free tier I have, sir? They only ask you to pay
Yes,
$1.
yeah, for the free tier, I think let's we can check it here ourselves. So AWS free tier, the 12 months. So let us see their free tier, the things that they provide on the free tier. So the AWS free tier, so they provide EC2 instances. Let me see if they have something about compute. It should be on compute should be under EKS. So I don't know. It's not looking like. So these are the 12 months free. So let me just search for EKS. So I don't think the EKS is. I don't think they have EKS on the free stuff for trials. No, them featured. So EKS is not one of their free services, unfortunately. So even on the free side, but apart from the 12-month free, I believe they provide credits. So it is this credit that you use to run. I don't know if you can check your billing aspect. So if you check your billing aspect, they have free credit that one can use to. So this free credit is what I believe one can use to provide kubectl. There's also, I was reading on something also, like a way to use Kubeflow online. I don't know if you guys know about something called there's a Docker, I think it's Docker online tool or something, Docker online playground. So there's like this Docker online playground that was provided by Docker itself. So Docker provided this playground for people that are having like these issues. If you have like these issues with if you have these issues with your PC where you cannot use, like, exactly, so installing Docker might be stressful and all of those kind of stuff. So they provide this playground where in this playground you have every Docker tool available to you. So it's always a session, and you can use each session for 3 hours. So you can add a new instance. Once you create this instance, so they give you a shell. This is like you interacting with a PC, and this PC has everything that you can use on Docker. You have it enabled. So I was researching if there's something like this for Kubernetes also, but then it will be harder to have something like this for Kubernetes because Kubernetes is a lot more expensive to run and to provide for free. But I'll also try, and you guys can also try and search for this. So you can see for this they give 4 GB of space, 4 GB RAM free, sorry. And then with this you can even create an SSH from your local system if you don't want to use this particular cloud console. For guys that understand what SSH is, you can SSH into this particular virtual machine and then use all of these resources. So it's Docker Playground. So there's I don't know. I was checking if there will be something like that for Kubernetes, but I've not found anything tangible yet. So that's another way. If something like that is available, it's another way that we can try to get to use Kubernetes without having to go through all of the issues of installing it locally on our systems. So we've said a lot, but yeah, let me just try and. So this is something that even if you don't, for a lot of people, if you want this process that I'll be showing you now, it's probably that it will work on your PC if you have enough resources. So I'll just be showing you this. I need to remove the current version I have first because that one is corrupt already. So I want to take it from the top so you guys can see what it entails. So the tool that Micro K8 is using to offer Kubeflow is also basically something like a virtual machine also. So multipass. So if I uninstall it, you see that it should leave. Let me uninstall multipass, exactly. Uninstall. So uninstall. Yes, remove all of this. So we are uninstalling this. So we'll take the process again from the top. So the process is just going to be from this file here. That's when you download the MicroK8 installer, just like you want to set up MicroK8 on a Windows PC. I believe most of us here are using Windows PC. So when you go to the MicroK8 installer, um when you download this for installation for Windows, so that's the process and where we're going to start from. So we just need to uninstall this. So we can take this step from the beginning, and everything that we're going to be doing here is going to work. The only issue that is going to happen is that um, after all of the installation works, the Kubeflow will not be able to start because the remaining resources that will be left after it has installed in the virtual machine, when it is trying to start all of the service, the resources it will have left is not going to be enough for it to start. But the processes I'm going to show you is enough to get um, is how you can get is the standard way that can make Kubeflow work on your local PC, a Windows machine, if you have enough resources available. So now that I've installed this, you can see now that just by uninstalling the multipass, now I have 4 GB of RAM available. Previously, I think the highest we saw was 1.2 or thereabouts. So because when I installed the multipass, I had given multipass around 4 GB of RAM for my RAM allocation. That's for my 16 gig. I had given it 4 GB to use, and even the 4 GB I had given it was not enough for it to get Kubeflow to start. And if I go now, I think also from if I go to my PC, you see that there should be more space. Exactly. So previously I was showing you guys that I had around 30 something gig. But after uninstalling multipass, because multipass is where the Kubeflow and the micro K8 was installed, I have, so those two, that installation alone was taking around 20 GB of space. And even with the 20 GB of space I have given it, it was not enough for it to start successfully. So in an event where I have around 150 GB of space, if I have something like 150 gig of space, I can confidently allocate 50 gig to the virtual machine. And then if my RAM was up to 32 GB, if I had up to 32 GB of RAM, I would have probably around 20 GB available. Then I'll be able to allocate around 16
Sir,
to the VM.
sir,
Yes, I can hear you.
all these, what would I recommend? What configuration do we need for running all these Kubernetes,
Yes,
Airflow, and local system?
the yeah, the configuration,
Because
what you just need is 32 GB of RAM and enough space. For some people, if it was when I had this system newly, out of 500 GB of space, I might have had like 250 GB free. You get? But I have things like MATLAB on my system. I have SolidWorks. I have MATLAB. I have SolidWorks. I have Anaconda itself. And then apart from Anaconda, I also have Docker. I have Minikube. So all of these alone are taking a large chunk of space on my system already. That's why I don't have up to like 100 gig space free to pass to the RAM. If my system on this configuration had like around 32 GB of RAM and my space was up to 100 gig, then it will work perfectly. So you don't need to like break the bank or something. All you just need is to ensure that if you want a system, just try and let your system be like 32 GB of RAM, and then your space, if it's 500 gig, you know that you want to be running majorly Kubeflow. Because I, as a person, I do a lot of stuff. So that's why if it were to be only Anaconda and Docker I had installed, I would have had a lot of other resources. I would have had a lot of other resources. I'd have had a lot of other resources free to be able to run this perfectly. But then I cannot start uninstalling those because it will not be, to get them back is going to be something. Sure, you get. So all you just need is at least
primarily
200.
32 GB RAM is what is required. Majorly 32 GB RAM.
Yeah, 32 gig RAM. Yes, 32 gig RAM. If you have 32 gig RAM, you have enough RAM to for your system to be running and to also allocate to the virtual machine that will be able to run Kubeflow
And
successfully.
500 GB is fine, sir, right?
Yeah, 500 gig. 500 gig is fine. 500 gig is fine.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so now that I've uninstalled those, so now let us start all of the process. So the process, just as usual, just like any installation. So you click on microkit installer. So when you agree to all of this, so this is where it requires multipass. So multipass is like the virtual machine. So instead of, rather than using virtual machines like WSL or using Kubeflow, sorry, for using VMware, all of the likes, MicroK8 has a partnership with Multipass itself. So Multipass is lightweight in terms of virtual machines. It's like one of the lightest virtual machines out there. So they use Multipass to try and ensure, that's what they use to power their own virtual machine that they now use to install MicroK8 on Windows. So when you click on install, if you don't have Multipass installed previously, what will happen is that it will start the process to install Multipass. So all of these are just very, very, this is why Windows is easy, because I just have to click. All of these processes now, if you're using like an Ubuntu, the recommended process would be like you'd have had to type some things, type some configuration, sudo change, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. But then that's why it's Windows, it's GUI and everything is stuff. So once this so to use multipass, you need to have Hyper-V enabled. So if you don't have Hyper-V enabled, um it's not going to work. So multipass has been installed, and then you finish this. So when you finish multipass, you see that it will ask you this question, that do you want to configure and launch. So this is where the issue comes to play. So this is what they believe that you should provide. Okay, they believe that you should provide, for standard, you should provide two CPUs. For my CPUs now, I think I have around CPUs is not like, but I have up to 8 on my CPU. So providing two is not an issue. the issue comes from here, memory. Because if I go back to my task manager, I have just 4.4 gig. So if I allocate 4 gig here, 0.4 gig is not going to be enough for my PC to run accurately. So if I allocate up to 4 gig here, my PC will just lag, and this, it will probably restart. It will just show blue screen. You have run into an error, blah blah blah, because there will be not the available RAM will not be enough to run other processes that is required. So that's why I had to reduce this to something like 3. So if I reduce this to something like 3, and then 50 gig, I can try to allocate 50 gig. But the same issue also occurs that if I come to my PC, I have just 54.1 gig free. If I allocate up to 50 gig here, it implies that I have just 4.1 gig free, and then things like caching that Chrome is using, caching of resources and stuff that allows you to not have to reload all your apps every time. You won't have space to store them. So that's why I have to reduce this. I reduce this to something like 30, so, but I'll make it 35 here. So if I make it 35 now, you click on next. So with this, the micro kit will get installed. So, and this is a lot of, takes some data. I just hope the bandwidth is fast enough. Launch field, remote, blah blah blah. So all of these are just warning steps. Remote is unreachable. I see. I've not seen this kind of error before. Let's try and start this again. Okay, let me just cancel this. uh Let me uninstall the multipass again, because when you have this kind of issue, the issue is not from the Kubernetes, it's from the multipass installation, because multipass is the main virtual machine that is running this. So I'll just uninstall this again. I've uninstalled this like more than 10 times actually, and then this is the first time I'm seeing such an error. Okay, so close this. Multipass has been uninstalled. No. Exactly. So let us install multipass. I agree. Hyper-V. Let me ensure features. But I was saying something like an error there before. So yes, my Hyper-V is enabled. Okay. Next. Next. Install.
Sorry, please. How do you check if Hyper-V is enabled?
When you click on your Windows button, just search for features. So you see this option here, turn Windows features on or off. So you click on open, and when you click on this, you see a lot of different Windows features. So this is where I have Hyper-V. So this is my Hyper-V here. So if this box was not checked, then Hyper-V is not
I'm
enabled.
still using Windows 10. Looks like you're on 11.
Even on Windows 10, even on, sorry, can you, I think that's now Wale, can you please mute, or let me try and see. Okay, so yeah, even on Windows 10, once you type these features, it doesn't have to be like this. As long as you see something called turn Windows features on or off, immediately you type in features on any Windows version, that's what should come out. Or even if you can type it in full, turn
I've seen it.
Windows.
I've seen it.
So once you do that, your search option should go. Yeah, exactly. So that's where it should be. Okay, so I think our this is yeah, so this is done. So let's finish this now, and then let's see if we should not run into any issue anymore. Setup was aborted. Why was setup aborted? Downloads. Okay. Now let me just redo this, because I created the previous one. I agree. So multipass. I see. Install. So let's configure it. So yeah, I reduced this to 35, and I made this 3 gigabytes. Okay. Then next. Cancel. Okay. 4:48 already. So I think this is where the issue is, because it should not, it's not connecting to that multi-pass socket. There's an issue somewhere actually. Yes. Let me make this 14. And this makes it 30. Let me just restart this whole process. Uninstall field, finish. Uh, Multi-pass. So exactly. Quit. Uninstall. Yes. And I still went through all of these processes again previously. I don't know why it's taking bringing this error. So let's try and hope this works now. So it's install multi-pass again. I agree. Hyper-V. So this might just require that I restart my system. So if I start this again, if I try this again, I'm still getting issues. I think we have almost done with today's daemon install result 0, copy failed, fonts. So there's an issue that is not allowing this copy, and it will most likely be because I just uninstalled it and it might require a restart before this will work. So today we did not really do much. What we just did was a lot of talking actually, but I've sent all of these links. Failed, yeah, failed. So this multipass is not installing, and because this multipass is not installing, microkit cannot work. So there's an issue somewhere, and I will try and sort this before our next live coding session, because I had done this previously like over and over, because it does not take time. The only issue is that the resources available after setting up the Kubernetes. Let me see what this will say. Yeah, so it cannot connect to the multi-pass socket. So this is probably because I just uninstalled and I need to restart my system. So it will take a while now for me to restart my system, and then because we have just 9 minutes left. So what will happen is we have two live coding session next, and then for our next live coding session, what if the first thing we'll do is we'll finish this multi-pass stuff, that's enabling multi-pass like on Windows, and then installing it, because all of the process we want to follow are here. Okay, the only thing that I'm going to change is that when we are installing Kubeflow is too heavy in this particular aspect when we want to deploy. Yeah, Kubeflow is too heavy. So instead of deploying Kubeflow, I was able to see a particular thread where people spoke and they complained about the fact that Kubeflow is too heavy, and they came up with something called Kubeflow Lite. So you can see this here. So this is something called Kubeflow Lite. So you can see that the full Kubeflow bundle require a lot of resources. 2 CPU, 16 GB of RAM, blah blah blah. So unless you know that's what you want and you have the resources to match, we recommend starting with the Kubeflow Lite. So there's something here called Kubeflow Lite, and that is what we'll be deploying. And even the Kubeflow Lite, even though it's a lighter version of the Kubernetes, it is still taking a lot more resources than I have to offer. So that's basically what we're doing. And then when we are done, up to this point, you see that our deployment will work successfully. So at this point, when we are working at the so the next code there is where we now start checking the process, because if you come back here, you see what they say here. This deployment can take up to 5 to 10 minutes. And what will happen? There's also something here where they say blah 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 blah. So you say that this will periodically run blah blah, and don't be surprised because some of the components will show blocked or error. You just have to exercise enough patience, because they mentioned it that they don't have a way to ensure. One of the issues that microkit itself have is that they don't have a way to check the status of pods. automatically. You have to be the one that will keep running the command for you to know. Like they don't have, it's not like for example on a website, if you upload a file, it's possible that you leave the website blah 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 or on your phone, and then when the uploading is done, they'll give you a push notification your uploading has finished or something like that. So that kind of feature is not available on things like this. So you have to be the one that will keep checking your status. So there will be some times where you see that you check the status and you see that some things are blocked or failed. So this was one of the things that I even thought probably this should later come up, but then the stuff does stuck. It got stuck on block and error, and later I realized that it was due to the lack of resources. So in our next live coding session, the first thing we'll do is we'll finish this multi-pass deployment. So we'll not be doing a lot of talking. We'll just be going through all of the steps and then ensuring that it works. So after that, then we'll now move to Kubeflow documentation and see the major component on Kubeflow. Like what are the things that are present on Kubeflow that is making it so large, and why, even though with all of the bottlenecks that it has, I mean in terms of size, portability and stuff, why is it still the industry standard? So that's what we'll do in our next live coding session. And then in the last live coding session, we'll probably try and complete what we left behind in the last stage where we try to deploy two apps. So seeing as in the meanwhile, I will try to see if we can get Kubernetes, a Kubeflow version running on Azure. So I will try and see what it entails to get one running on Azure, and if we can get that up, we'll also showcase it. But the next live coding session will still be for local development, and then the last one, if we cannot get Kubeflow running by any means after doing a lot of research, we'll just use Kubernetes itself, and we'll show how we can deploy those containers that we have created using Docker, how we can deploy them in Docker itself, and then deploying them using Kubernetes. So that will be all for today's live coding session. I don't know. I
Sir,
think
please, can I ask, sir? You said you were going to get back, sir. It's a little research on how to help me debug the error I had
the
concerning.
error the error if it's a Windows PC, the I think you pasted the error. Then I'll go through Slack again and try and
All right, sir.
um. But I think yeah, there was something that
About
the error.
driver, DRV,
Yes,
Hyper-V.
about the hyperdrive or something. I'll just check it again and then let you know. But you can
Okay.
just like paste the error. But what in stuff like that, what I always try, like after doing all of the uninstallation, there are places where um residual files will be stored. So for example, in your things like your local program, if I show you my C drive, for example, desktop, and if I come inside my C drive, you see something called .cube. Okay, I think it should be under users, or yeah, under my user folder. So this is something called .cube. So this .cube, even after uninstalling my Minikube, this will still remain. I have to come and delete this manually. So you can try and look for this on your system. Delete things like .cube, delete .docker also, for because this is what powers the Docker catch files, and
The
.cube
program file
powers.
or not program
No,
file?
not program file. In your local disk under your
Okay,
users,
okay,
when
okay.
you enter local disk under users, then the
Okay.
name of your user,
Yeah, profile. Okay.
y- yes, the name of your user profile. So you see something like .minikube there. Try to delete the .minikube. It has a lot of stuff, machines, blah blah blah. So uninstall minikube, delete the .minikube. If you uninstall Docker, also delete the .docker, and then first install Docker. Ensure that your Docker is working, then try and install Minikube, and I feel that should work. But then I think I saw one error that even Minikube itself tried. You should try something to fix. So I'll try and check Slack again.
Is there any order of installation? Keep CTL before this or that, or doesn't matter? Sir?
No, I don't think that matters. And another thing you can try to look into is if Minikube is not working on your system, you can try Kind. Kind is easier to set up than Minikube on system. So you can try to use Kind, and then with Kind, if you are able to get it's basically the same thing. The only difference is that Minikube is a one node cluster, one node Kubernetes engine, while Kind gives multiple nodes, if I remember correctly. So you can try to use Kind instead of Minikube if you see that Minikube is giving you a lot of issues. But try and uninstall them, delete all of these cache files on your system, restart the system, and then try and complete the installation again.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, all right, guys, no problem. Thanks for showing up. Do have a wonderful rest of the day, and see you on Friday.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, bye.